Welcome, everybody, to the Resident and Family Support Council meeting. For those of you who are new to our meeting, we do these meetings on the second and the fourth Tuesday of every month at 3 o'clock. And the link that you use for today's meeting is that same link that you use for all of our meetings. So keep that link handy so that you can continue to join our meetings. But in the same breath, we also do recognize that 3 o'clock on a Tuesday may not be the best time for many residents and or families to join us for these meetings. So we do record them and we put them on YouTube. And Stephen is working his magic in the background and starting to put all of the links into the chat so that you can access those wonderful videos that we've have a collection of. We're about at 100 right now. 100 videos. We've been doing this now for 5 years, believe it or not. It's kind of amazing that we've been doing it for so long. Um, and we've got a variety of different topics that can really help you navigate this long-term care path. We understand how difficult it can be to start having to look at these aging services and what it's all about, and just it can be very overwhelming for people. And so last year, what we decided we would do is we went around to different long-term care communities across the state of Illinois, and we interviewed residents about just what life was like for them living in long-term care, what worked well for them, what didn't. We asked them about some person-directed care practices and if they had those happening in their long-term care communities or if they would like to see those things. And we had some really great aha moments that I know I felt, and I'm hoping some of you all felt that as well. With interviewing the residents last year, we decided, there's another group here that also is struggling with a lot of these decisions and just how it all feels, and that's the family. And we recognize that for the families, this can be really, really difficult as well. So this year, I'm going to be interviewing family members to talk to them about navigating this long-term care path. And today, we actually have Sandra here, a family member of someone who has a loved one in long-term care. And I'm going to be talking with her. And I want to encourage all of you, as you're hearing things that may be striking to you, to feel free to raise your hand. Stephen will keep me on target if I don't see the hand being raised, or if you want to put stuff into the chat, Stephen will share that as well. Because I know that this can be a difficult conversation sometimes for people because this is not easy. I always say to family members whenever I talk to them, we don't know what we don't know. And this is a new path. And so we're just trying to figure things out. And we love the individual that is in that long-term care community. And it can get difficult for us because we just don't know which is the right way to do things or what we should be doing or what we shouldn't be doing. So with all that being said, Sandra, I don't know if you can turn your camera on or not. Hi, there we go. Hey, Sandra, it's great to see you. I'm really glad that you could join us today, and thank you for doing this for me.
Mhm. Sure.
Sandra and I actually go back. We're college roommates,
Hmm.
and Sandra actually was the one who gave me the idea for wanting to do this conversation. Our girlfriends get together, our college girlfriends get together and do Zoom calls. We started this during COVID, and we continue to do these every couple of months. And our last conversation, Sandra was sharing about just her experience with her mother being in a long-term care community and how that felt. And many of the other girlfriends that we have as well also have had family members that have gone down this path as well. And we were all sharing, and I thought afterwards that was such um, a good conversation that I feel like so many of us need to have these conversations. So that's what I'm hoping this will look like today. Sandra and I just having a conversation, you guys interjecting as you want, and just doing some exploring about some of this whole path, like I keep talking about. So, Sandra, welcome and thank you for joining
Thank
us.
you. Thank you.
And
Yep.
so
Sure.
Sandra is a caregiver from a distance. Her mother
Yes.
is in a long-term care community in Illinois, and Sandra is in another state. So she is doing caregiving from a distance here.
Right.
So how are you doing today,
I'm
Sandra?
doing great. I'm doing good. Very good. Thank you. Thank you for having me. And just to set the stage a little bit, I am long distance. I'm out of state. I have two other siblings. My big sister is also out of state, about 3 hours distance. I'm a plane ride away from my mother. My sister's a 3 hour car ride, and then my brother lives the closest, and he's about 1 hour away. So just to
Yeah.
kind of give some
Yeah,
context to our
I
family
know, because that's
situation.
important to know because times people might be around the corner and then we might also feel guilty. Do we
Hmm.
do we bring mom? Like, did you ever have the thought about having your mother go closer to your sister or come closer to you instead of
Yes.
staying in the community where she lived? Did you ever think about that?
Oh, many times, many times, over decades, actually. Even when my dad was still alive, we talked about it, but there was resistance. They don't want to leave their community. They don't want to leave what their home.
And I think that that's good because as a person who has been doing these types of things and having conversations like this for
Mhm.
a long time, including my previous gig that I did, many times when we do take people out of that community that they lived in, they have a disconnect now. They don't feel as empowered. We're
Mm,
stripping them of some of their roots
right,
unknowingly. Unknowingly, we do that.
right. I
Was
mean, and
there
that's where family is. There's the three of us children, but then my mom has eight grandchildren, and four of them are out of state, but four of them are right there in the Chicagoland area. So, it's hard to pull away from that kind of support.
Yeah, yeah. And she's not too far from where she lived in her home, correct?
Correct. From the home where we grew up, she's just one township over.
So that gives some more sense of community for her as well, I'm sure.
Hmm.
So tell me a little bit about your mom. Tell me about a little bit about who your mom is and was and all of those sorts of things.
Okay. Well, my mom has been extremely independent for a very long time. She will be 94 years old in March. And I mean, she's really amazed us all. She's as sharp as can be, incredibly sharp memory. She would make me feel like, she had a better memory than I did, actually. She would remember things. Oh, don't you remember, Sandra, back in 1976, we did this? And I'm just like, you know, so very sharp, very independent. She and my father moved into this retirement community in 2015.
Okay.
And prior to that, they lived in the home that I grew up in for over 50 years. So it was a big transition.
What prompted that move?
Well, my dad was in his upper 80s, nearly 90 years old. They were slowing down. The home that we grew up in required a lot of maintenance, and he's one of those greatest generation type of guys where
Mhm.
he had to do everything himself. It was getting to be too much, up and down stairs, very large lot, lots of maintenance. And
Mhm.
they wanted a simpler, easier uh, lifestyle. And so they moved into this independent cottage, and it worked out really well, although it was a difficult transition, probably more difficult for my father than my mom. Uh, because he was used to his yard and his garden, and he built the house that we grew up in. He was very deeply rooted in that home. But they
Mhm.
adjusted well, and they chose this community where they had an option to have an independent living cottage. Uh, but my father had foresight to have a particular community that also had a rehab center and also had long-term care,
Mhm.
because he knows inevitably those things are needed. And he really
Mhm.
wanted to make sure that my mom was situated in a place where she would be well taken care of. So I
Mhm.
really marvel at his foresight and his acceptance and really planning accordingly.
Yeah, I mean, because so some of the messaging that I'm hearing in this right now is your parents made the decision. Your parents made this
Yes,
choice. And
100%.
yeah,
Yes.
and so many times I hear that family members are making the decision and the
Mm,
choices for people. And I don't think that that goes as well
Mm.
as what happened in your experience with your parents making that choice and that decision. And then your father, because he was able to then give it some critical thought for the
Yes,
future as well, because he really did make that decision and kind of had those ideas of what could this future really look like? What could it look like as we continue to age?
right. What will our needs be? Will our needs be met?
Hmm.
He was mostly concerned about my mom.
Hmm.
He was quite a bit older than her. What will her needs be? Will she be taken care of in my absence? So, yeah, I do give him a lot of credit. Now, he delayed implementing the decision, but they spent many years researching and learning and visiting places and discussing and coming
And
to.
what was life like for them living in the independent living situation compared to living at home? Did they engage in the community life and all of that?
Yes, yes. And my dad was really surprised how much he enjoyed it. They had a little plot. My dad's was a big gardener. He was able to continuing his gardening hobby, which was a surprise to him and a happy surprise. And they would have dinner in the dining hall, and they met lots of other couples and made some friends, reconnected with people who they might have known in the community previously. So it was a sweet season. It was a really sweet season for the two of them together. And then my dad passed. They moved in 2015. He got to enjoy it for a couple of years. Then he passed away in 17. And my mom was independent in that cottage, driving, caring for herself, handling this, you know, pretty two-bedroom, two-bathroom, living room, dining room, kitchen, cooking, doing all of that on her own until well, really until 2025.
Hmm. Okay. So that's she was there for a long time living
Hmm.
independently in that community.
Hmm.
And now
Eight
you
years.
as being that out of town child, how
Hmm.
did it feel for you through all of through that transition? First of all, when your parents first moved, because you weren't going home anymore, you were going to
Right,
their new
right.
home. How did that feel for you?
Initially, I mean, initially it felt different, but I mean, I'm from a military family. I've moved a lot. My husband and I have moved all over the country. So I understand that, your home is where you're at and
Hmm.
and the people who you are with. So you have to kind of uproot and rebuild. So for me, it was probably a little bit more natural. It was sad, of course, to see our family home go into someone else's hands, but we knew it was the best thing for them, and we felt
Hmm.
really good about their situation. They were
Hmm.
happy. We didn't worry as much about my dad getting on a ladder or my mom falling down the stairs or some of the things, or my dad on his tractor out mowing his lawn, or rototilling his garden. We didn't have to worry about some of the chances and the things that they did, that they really ought not be doing at that stage of their life. So I
Yeah.
would say it was, initially it was different, but very quickly we all acclimated because visiting them there was just like visiting them at our childhood home. We were
Mhm.
able to have meals with them. We were able to visit with them, go shopping, go to church, go to the stores, go to activities, go to Fourth of July fireworks. We were able to do all the things that we always enjoyed doing. Sit with them in the
That's
living room and watch a movie. I mean, it was the the way in which we interacted relationally did not change.
okay. So then what was the next thing? Your father now, your father lived there for 2 years, and then
Hmm.
your father passed away, and then
Hmm.
your mother was there, and your mother was still thriving in the community. She was
Hmm.
still had relationships and all that stuff
Hmm.
and was still doing things. So she was doing
Yes,
good.
8 years, but some of
Mhm.
those years were COVID, so that really isolated her. We have to
Okay.
remember. So instead
Yeah.
of going to the dining hall, meals were delivered, and she kind of continued that routine even after COVID passed.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that so COVID, just speak to that. How did you feel when you were
Oh,
hearing about all these long-term care communities closing down across the country? People were dying everywhere. How did you feel as somebody that was states away?
oh, it was terrible. It was. It was a dark, dark period, dark and very strange period in humanity's history, right? I mean, I think
Hmm.
about it now, the way we did business, the way that we, saw or weren't able to see family. It was difficult. It was difficult.
And now, was your brother, was he able to give you some sense of safety because he was a little bit closer? Was he able
Yes.
to see them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's it. So at least you did have a sibling in state that
Yes.
would could get maybe lay eyes on them every now and then.
Yes. And when things calmed down, my sister was able to go as well.
Okay.
Yes. When things calmed down. And even my nieces, they would just wear a mask. You know,
Hmm.
my mother she still had contact with people, which is reassuring. I know there was
Hmm.
lots of people who didn't, and that's very sad.
Yeah. The ones that were in the skilled settings had a
Mhm.
very difficult time, and the ombudsman program had a lot of um, responsibility in making sure that everybody understood the visitation, the what visitation was allowed, and making sure that people's rights were not being violated. So it was a crazy time,
Yeah,
um, but at least your parents at that point were not. Your mom was not in the long term care in the community
right. She
in
was
the skilled
independent.
side. Yeah, she
Hmm.
was in the
She
independent
was
side.
independent.
So then,
If
what
it
happened?
happened now, if it
Yeah.
happened now, I don't know if we'd be able to visit and where she's at. She's in a skilled nursing
Yeah,
level.
well, do know, and this is information for everybody to know, and we will be having a session on that as well about visitation and long-term care. There has been a law passed in Illinois that it's the essential caregivers law, and every person that lives in a long-term care community in Illinois, I think it might be, I don't know all the details, but I know it's at least for skilled, is they get to designate an essential caregiver.
Hmm.
And everybody gets to do this. And by designating an essential caregiver, that person gets to go in no matter what happens. If we
Mm.
have another pandemic, if we have any sort of crisis that happens, there is an individual that can be designated that can go in and be a part of that person's life still.
One person.
One person is designated right now.
That's really good information.
Yeah, it is. And it's a great law, and they're looking at federally. It's up for federal vote right now. But
Mhm.
Illinois was a forerunner in that.
Mm.
And so we had a family caregiver actually who spearheaded that. And she did a really just kind of fought because she had a son in long-term care that she couldn't see. And so she really spearheaded that initiative. And
Mm.
it was passed last year. So it will be going into effect I don't know when, Stephen, I don't know if you remember the details, but we will be having a meeting about this, everybody. I do want you to know that we will be talking about visitation in long-term care because we do get a lot of kickback with that, with the Ombudsman program, for a variety of different reasons, with
Mm.
different people visiting, not being able to visit, being able to visit, things like that. So we'll be having a session on that as well. So I want to make sure everybody's aware of that. So now your mom, post-COVID, She's
Mhm.
she's recovering from it, kind of, sort of, but she's still not the same person because she's not going into the dining room like
Mhm.
she was. She's not as social as she was. Now what happens here, Sandra?
Well, she got shingles. That's another thing that kept her isolated,
Oh,
right when things were starting to open up. Or it might have been in the heat of COVID. I forget the timeline, but that also kind of self, she became a little bit more self-isolated. But things were getting back to normal,
hmm.
I'm using air quotes, but she was aging. She was aging, so things are not the same.
Hmm.
Every day, every year you have a birthday. So she had a couple incidents. In 23, she fell and then she needed surgery and she needed rehab. And then that was a period of time. So
Hmm.
hospitalization, surgery, rehab, PT, and then she did eventually go back to her cottage
Okay.
and acclimated well, but it was a process and it required all of us really helping as much as we could. Frequent visits, oversight in rehab, oversight in PT, encouragement. to get better, to walk again, to be
Mhm.
independent. And she amazingly was able to do that. But then in 25, last February, she fell again. And
Mm.
so this time also too required surgery and rehab. And that was February of 25. She was she was sent back to live in her cottage independently in April. And
Okay.
that's when big changes happen. And she was not comfortable, even though we had extra help there for her to help her shower, get dressed in the morning, get dressed in the evening.
Mhm.
She was afraid and she wanted to go back to rehab. She wanted to go back into what she calls the other building, which
Uh-huh.
is, where they have the long-term care.
Mhm.
We I think in a period of 2 weeks, we call 911 was called maybe 3 times, and she
Wow.
was ambulanced 2 of those times, I believe, to the emergency room because she would get scared and call security, and then they would come and, you know, what they do is they call 911 typically.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
so
And what was she scared of? Was she scared of falling again? Was that what the issue was? Or
being alone, she didn't
being
feel
alone?
safe. I don't think she trusted herself.
Okay.
There's a little bit of cognitive decline, and I think she's aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, the right pills to take at the right time, remembering
Okay.
things. Uh, she
Because
has,
she's in independent living at this time, and so there is
right,
no standard nursing care that happens.
correct. And we did have people come in and help her, but it was always somebody different. We didn't have the
Oh.
same person consistently.
Mm-hmm.
And that I think brought on anxiety. Who's going to show up? When are they going to show up? What am I, because she needed to kind of orchestrate what they should be doing, and I don't think
Yeah.
she was comfortable with that. So it was
Mm-hmm.
just she really, really did wanted to go back, and the caregivers that were with her didn't think she was safe. Her
Okay.
medicines were getting mixed up. They found her medicine pill container where things were not in the right order because she
Um,
started manipulating that.
and
So,
not being a family member that could be there every day
right,
to do those sorts of things, you were dependent on an outside entity who doesn't care if they don't love your mother.
right.
And so it makes that difficult too.
Hmm.
How did this feel for you as the family member during this time, Sandra?
Oh, well, it was a scary that was a scary time. April, May, uh,
Hmm.
because we would get phone calls. My sister and I would get random phone calls throughout the day, and you know, my mother speaking in an emergent matter, and we didn't know, do we call an ambulance? We were trying to discern
Hmm.
what's actually happening, and not being there in person, that was very, very difficult. you
Hmm.
know, my brother would visit and he would report to us on how things were going, and we thought things were going okay, but then we would get these phone calls in the middle of the day, the middle of the night, at all different times that she was kind of panicking. She did not feel safe. And she
Hmm.
kept saying to me, something's not right. I'm not the same.
Okay.
Something's not right.
Now, I'm just curious, is your mother a technological person? Was she able to FaceTime so you could at least see her? She could see you or not?
She was. She was. She doesn't have an iPhone. She has another type of a phone. But she has a, a Mac PC, and we were able to do that when she was in the cottage, when she was independent. That is something that we've no longer been able to do since she's moved to long-term care. She doesn't
And
have a
what's the
desk.
barrier to that?
I'm
What's
sorry.
what's the barrier to that? Why can't she do that?
A lot. She's out of her element. She's out of the routine. It's almost been a year since she's been proficient on the computer. She used
Hmm.
to be on the computer all the time. She had it set up in her home. She would Google this, Google that because she's a curious human. And we taught her how to FaceTime using the
Mhm.
PC. And it was easier. She kept it up on her dining room table. It was accessible, it was available. And then since that time, there was a lapse in using it. Number one barrier is my daughter who lives out of state was visiting last week, and I asked her to please get on the PC and reset the password because my mom forgot her password. And and there's still some problem getting into it. So when I'm
Okay.
up there, I'm going to need to just get to the bottom of it so she can use the computer again. But she keeps it in a drawer, and it's a little bit more difficult. She's on a walker now to get it out. She doesn't have a desk and to kind of set it up. And she's not familiar with it. I mean,
Uh-huh.
it's been a year, and that's a long
Yeah.
time
Oh, yeah,
for someone
it
who's
is. Yeah, because
93.
I again, just to make sure people are aware, there are a variety of different resources out there for people that live in long-term care. The Illinois Assisted Technology Program, they came to one of our meetings and shared with us the resources that they had. But they also will assist people with
Mhm.
working, doing their computers and helping them with
Mm.
being able to log in and being able to work their own systems. They even provide, there is a grant that's provided to the Department on Aging to be able to provide iPads and things like that for people. You could talk to your area agency on aging about that resource, and they should be able to connect you with that because it can be something that can be really good for individuals that are experiencing that. My mother's 92 and not technological, so none of that works for her. Stephen, did you have a comment to make?
Yeah, if even if you don't qualify for some of the programs to get free or reduced
Mhm.
um cost on the items that you might need, just calling them and talking to the assistive technology program is it can open up doors to resources that you you had no idea existed. They have solutions
Yes.
over there for, I love the place. They have solutions over there for problems that I didn't even know existed. And if they don't have it,
Yeah.
they might be able to print it.
Mhm.
So it's fantastic.
Yeah, they have a 3D printer. So one of the things, Sandra, to let you know, and my mother has very TV watching the news is very, very important to my mother. And Stephen knows this story. Well, we were there doing this live presentation, looking at all of the various opportunities they have to help enhance people's lives. They had these speakers that go on the back of a chair that aren't very obtrusive, and that are easy to operate. You just Bluetooth it once and it's really easy. And the speakers are right there in the people's ears.
Oh, that's
And I was
fantastic.
like, that would be great for my mother. And I got it. My sister and I wound up buying them for my mother for Mother's Day that year. And my mother says they're the best thing ever. She uses those things constantly. Every night she can hear amazingly. She was really struggling because watching the news, even though you put the captions on, it's live
Those are
time. So
yes.
the words are not necessarily what it is that's coming out of people's mouths. So she was really struggling with getting the messaging that was happening
Mhm.
during the news. So this has really just enhanced her quality to her life. And now she has her certain shows that she really just absolutely positively loves to watch. And she gets that experience of being able to enjoy them again. So
That's
this is not
fantastic. I'm going to
yeah,
need to,
it's
yeah, this is something I need to follow up on because I do think my mom has the ability to learn. I mean, she texts like crazy. She has an Alexis, so there's that. But
yeah.
but most of our communication for myself and my sister who are out of state is texting now. We can't even talk on the phone. So maybe if I called this place, they have an idea of a better phone or something because she can't hear, she can't understand the words
Yes.
that we're saying.
If you're at home and because if you have a landline, which they may be able to put a landline actually into her
Yeah.
room, they can't. Okay.
I know that
But they're
they have those
the cap phones.
landlines where they have the language
Yes.
printed right out there. Mm-mm. No, they
because my
don't.
mother has that as well. But I also, those CAP phones, which is another resource for everybody to be aware of, they are typically free. My mother got hers
Mhm.
free. She actually attended a conference with me one time. I dragged her along with me, and she saw this thing and she wound up ordering it. And now she's onto the new and improved version. They just got her just recently, but it is a really great resource. But also, the long-term care community itself should be able to help her engage with her family, particularly if they're out of state. Well,
Mm.
and really anybody. But that's part of what an activity department should be doing, a social service department. Typically, they do have iPads, or they have, and you can have it scheduled time, like, maybe once every other week. I could get a call from my mother at this time on the iPad so we can video call with each other. And that could be put into her care plan. And then all they need to do is help facilitate it for her. And they could leave the room and come back at the end of the
They
time
would
and turn it
they would
over.
come in with the iPad and dial up the numbers. Oh,
Hmm.
that would be great.
Yeah.
I'm going
So
to
you should
write
talk
some
to
of
her.
these things down.
Yeah, and this is stuff that would go into their care plan. I know we talk a lot about a care plan as an ombudsman, but when things like that get put into the care plan, it makes for that continuity of that care. And if staff leave, it's there. It also holds them to doing it because if something's in the care plan, they've got to do it. And that is a much
Yeah.
better way of using an activity department instead of if your mother doesn't want to paint or doesn't want to, go to the band or this is a way of them to be able to provide her with that service that she really could benefit from connecting with her family.
I think it's fantastic that you're bringing this up so others are aware of this because I never, ever would have even thought to tap into the activities department to help my mom either on her computer or to bring an iPod in so we could communicate with
And
her, or an
and
iPad
as
in so we could communicate with her.
and as a person who has consulted to long-term care in my past, through life enrichments, um, the activity people want to do stuff like this because this makes their heart feel so good to know that they are doing something that has such value and meaning for an individual. So I do want to encourage everybody to, think how can the staff help with that connection? They're not just there to care for your mother's body. They're also there to care for your mother's mind and heart. And that should be part of what they're tasked with doing and making sure that they are adhering to what it is that she needs and hearing your mother and knowing you, but also hearing the story of your mother. And, her children are her world. And
Mhm.
it's important for her to have that because then her world starts to disappear. And it
That's
doesn't
right.
have to be it doesn't have to be physical. It can sometimes just be that virtual can provide
Yeah.
that same aspect.
And imagine how soul nourishing it would be for her to see her great grandchildren and have a
Yes.
conversation with them,
Oh, the babies.
who are also
Yep.
several of those children are out of state. So
Yep. And I really would encourage for you to pursue that because it would be wonderful for her to be able to continue to see those grandbabies.
mhm.
So Sandra, now being out of state, I know when you used to go to visit your mother, you could stay with her.
Right. And even when she
Now, what
even when
happens
she was
now?
and even when she was in rehab, I was able to stay at the cottage and because I had long visits then, like week long.
Hmm.
Now it's more complicated because I don't, we've got rid of her car. We've she's downsized from the cottage, so now she's in the long-term, care unit there. So
Hmm.
there's no place for me to stay with her, obviously, anymore. So visits have changed. Those that are in state and local, usually they're shorter. They're shorter because there's the routine of the day, the breakfast, lunch, dinner activities. Uh,
Hmm.
my mom's napping more too. So I've noticed when others visit her, visits are usually shorter.
Uh-huh.
And for me, it requires, renting a car and then finding a place to stay. So my visits, the duration of my visits will also be shorter.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
And I
can't
can
really
see that
go
that
and
can impact because you're not You're not sitting there watching the movie together like you said you used to do, or she's not
Right,
cooking the meal for you like she used to
right.
do. And those are
We're,
motherly tasks that she
that's right.
can no
We're
longer
not
do. It
doing,
starts to change.
that's right. We're not doing the things that we used to do together. And she's lost independence, which has consequently limited our access to her.
Mm. And how does that feel?
Well, it not great, not
Yeah,
great. It's very
yeah.
difficult
So
because
again, to come as that person who has experience in this environment, to take a look and see, look at that. I'd encourage those particularly that live in state, take a look at that activity calendar and say, Grandma, I see on Saturday, or because they have their activity calendars for a month. I'm going to come back in 2 weeks. I'm an hour away, so I'll be back in 2 weeks. On Saturday, I see they've got a band coming. How about if I come and we go together? And we can just, we can visit beforehand and then we can go listen to the music and then so we could create a little bit more of just not sitting in the room staring at each other.
hmm
Because we have a tendency when we visit for our visits to be sitting there looking at each other, right? We
right,
sit in the room and we ask them how they feel.
right,
And obviously they're not feeling so great because they wouldn't be there if they felt
right.
good.
Well,
And
number one goal is always to get her out of the room. At least for me, it is. And when weather is permitting, to go outside. So she's not allowed to leave the floor on her own. But whenever there's visitors, for instance, my daughter was there last week, get her off the floor, go downstairs, see what's going on there, because that's where there's more independent people living and there's different
mhm.
activities. And when the weather is nice, they have a beautiful courtyard, get outside, do a couple laps in the courtyard. So I see what you're saying. I agree. It's just sitting in the room is not a
Right.
quality visit.
Yeah, and looking at people's past, what they used to do in the past, and bringing in a cookbook and talking about recipes, or tell me how you used to make your sauce,
Mhm.
or talk about things that are value to them. Bringing in pictures, bring in that box of pictures
Mhm.
that you want to go through and put into an album, and start putting them in an album with her.
Right.
Just starting to figure out that what those visits, how can you make them feel better for you and them, so that it doesn't feel like we're just staring and looking at each other you
Yeah.
know
These are good suggestions.
it
Really
can,
good
it can
ideas.
be
There's a
tough.
there's a paradigm shift that
Yeah.
everybody needs to make. Um,
And yeah, and I don't think we know how to do that,
mhm.
um, unless we make a concerted effort to do that. And I think that that's where that comes, it's like I've got to plan. I have to plan this visit. Otherwise, it's going to look like us staring at each other. And
Right.
sometimes the long-term care communities will allow you to bring in ingredients and cook. Some of
Mhm.
the places have a kitchen where you can, be able to do things like that together, where you could do laundry. They have washers and dryers. So you could do laundry together and have a cup of coffee while the clothes are in the dryer. You can fold together and have natural conversation. Um, that type of things is to really explore and feel like um, you're in, you're not an innocent bystander in this. This is your mother. This is for everybody that's on this call. This is the person that you love. And you want to make sure that you are having a great visit with them. So what does that look like for us? And making sure that the community, the long-term care community, is there to support that in some manner. And what does that look like? You
Yeah.
know? So just I think that those are types of things that are important to hear. So I want to change this now to working with the long-term care community and having those conversations. Have you engaged much with the long-term care community in
We
concerns
have
or questions
quarterly
or anything like that?
we have quarterly care meetings, and
Okay.
at that time we're engaging with the different people that head up each of the departments. But I've noticed a lot of the people, there's been some turnover, so consistency hasn't been great in terms of
Mhm.
a point person for a particular situation. And
Okay.
sometimes things come up, and I'm not sure who is the person to contact when we have a situation. One of the surprises or something we didn't think about in this transition is how difficult it is to get my mother to a dentist, to a specialist, to, I think I mentioned she's not hearing well. Since November, she's not hearing well. So our conversations on the phone, even though I call her every day, they're difficult. It's
Yeah.
hard. I listen, she can't really understand what I'm saying. So we follow it up with texting. So we're determined to communicate and we will continue to do so. But her hearing has really declined, and she needs to get to this one particular place where she bought her hearing devices to see that audiologist. And I didn't think it would be so difficult, but in the care meeting, they said, well, we'll have someone come and check her out. Well, the person who came is someone that they have that volunteers to come because she's an audiologist and she serves this community if they buy hearing aids from her. But my mother's new hearing devices are from a place in the community, and that's where she needs to go.
Yeah.
So getting her there is difficult. It's cold outside, Chicago cold, and
Yeah.
they won't allow her to leave unless she's in a wheelchair, and she has to take the transport. So I never realized how difficult it would be to schedule that transport. We had a situation where she had a dentist appointment, which we need to take her out for, and we couldn't get the transport. So then we had to cancel. You know how that is. And it's another 6 months before you can get in again. So I have to kind of schedule my visits. I have to make a dentist appointment, make a hearing device appointment, and then buy my plane ticket and schedule things. Then hope that the transport will follow through for me because it's
Yeah.
not 100%. The transport serves the independent community first. They get priority, and skilled nursing is last.
Oh,
It's independent, rehab, and then skilled nursing.
wow.
And so we're at the bottom. Even though they say Friday's a good day, I try to make appointments on Fridays, and sometimes it's not available. And
So
if
that so
anybody knows, you can schedule it on your own and pay. But one time I took her for a follow-up for her orthopedist for one of the surgeries. It was $100 to go less than 10 miles, like
that's
7 miles.
so they won't let you take her in your own car.
Mm-mm. Now, for me, I probably wouldn't have a car when I go.
But if you
My
rented I mean,
sister, my brother did one time take her in a car, but I have to be honest with you, I'm not sure I feel comfortable. Um, she's a fall risk, and and I don't know if I feel comfortable taking her in my own car by myself. When
mhm.
she was still in independent living, and Lee, I don't think you know this, um, it was March of 23. I took her shopping and I was helping her get out of the car and she lost her balance and she fell. And in my attempt to break her fall, which I did do successfully, I broke my collarbone.
Ah,
So I'm a little gun shy in terms
yeah.
of being able to manipulate her and handle her. I'm a kind of a slight person. And
Yeah, you are.
um, I don't have the strength to hold on to her if she fell,
Yeah.
were to
Yeah,
fall.
I hear that. Yeah. So
I mean, it's
someone did
scary.
say, is she,
When she falls, it's really scary.
yeah. Oh, well, and she's had, it sounds like some horrific falls that have resulted in
Mhm.
surgery. So I can imagine this is a top concern for
Mhm.
everybody.
Yeah,
So somebody put into the chat, is she unable to walk or does the facility require them in a wheelchair to keep them from falling?
she's in a
Can't you take her
walker.
yourself?
Yeah, that's exactly correct. They require that because she's a risk. They don't want her leaving. Now, my brother did once take her out in December, I think. in the walker in his car.
So just to know that that is that they shouldn't require that you can't, they shouldn't hold you back from being able to take your loved one out in a car. It's that again, that's up to you and your own
Mhm.
safety risk. You know what you can do and you can't do, because you don't want to put your mother at risk.
Right.
But do know that that they shouldn't keep you from being able to do that. That should not be something that
Yeah.
is a requirement.
I think that it's recommended and they don't want
Uh-huh.
the liability. I don't know if when my
Yeah.
brother took her out, if he had to sign her out or what the circumstance were. And I would feel fine with it if I had my son with me or my husband with me, but by myself, I don't,
Yeah.
I don't know, especially with the ice and snow that y'all are having right now.
Yes. Well, Sandra, remember, I do know how to transfer people from point A to point B, so I can go with you. Um,
Yeah, I
I
would
can help with
trust
your
you.
mom too.
I would
So
trust you.
know that I can do that for you.
Yeah.
As one of my dearest people that I love, and one of the most in the world, this gal right here, she's an amazing human being. Um, so I just want to make sure that everybody else hears that message as well. I do know that many long-term care communities, it's liability. So they will say sometimes their messaging may be, no, you can't. Where in the reality of it, there is a can in there. There is a can. No, you can. But again, you have to have your own ability to be able to feel that you can support that. And you can also ask the therapy department to teach you how to do the pivot, to go from a wheelchair to, or a walker to a car, how to be able to do those pivot things. And they should be able to work with you on that, because those are things that help increase independence for people and
Mm,
decrease that dependence, which once people start to become too dependent is when we see a lot of decline happen very, very quickly,
right.
throughout long-term care. So I'm now just to get a little personal. Have you, through this whole process, I know you have your brother and you have your sister, which is great, and you've got your children and your nieces and nephews, and and all of that. For you personally, as the person who is that long distance caregiver, have you felt isolated, alone, confused? How's this been for you in that emotional state?
I wouldn't say I felt isolated because I have my siblings.
Hmm.
And you know, a lot of times when something comes up, for example, yesterday something came up. A nurse called my sister, and there's a situation going on with my mom that necessitates her seeing a specialist outside of the facility. So this is taken priority over the hearing, the audiologist, or any routine
Hmm.
appointments that we need to set up. So right away, my sister called me, and we just kind of talk through it. And I think it helps to
Hmm.
have somebody to, if you put your heads together, two heads are better than one. I was able to provide my sister with some information that she did not have about my mom's history and some of her previous specialists that she used to see.
Hmm.
And that was helpful. I
Okay.
thought through some potential concerns in this process that I don't think, sometimes the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. This is what we have found a lot in communicating with the folks that work at the long-term facility. And they said they're going to make an appointment, but are they going to follow through and think through all the steps of the person that they make this appointment with? Is it someone my
Hmm.
mom's familiar with? Is it someone, that um, if it requires further tests, can they do it right there and then? Or is this going to be another trip back? Because my sister's 3 hours away, so she's going to need to drop everything to make this happen. We want some answers in that visit.
Yeah.
You know how navigating um, health issues, how difficult it can be for those of us who are very independent. So this just makes it even more complicated when someone is not as independent.
Yeah.
limited.
I just I feel that that would be that's such another piece that we don't even we think, well, they're going to long-term care community, they'll take care of everything, and I just get to
Right,
enjoy mom. Well, that's not the way that works.
right. And that would I would have to say that was a surprise for me. I thought
Hmm.
they have doctors on staff, they have nurses on staff. Her health needs will be cared for. But I mean, they have a health center right there. But no, it's required to go outside of the facility to see a specialist. It's something they can't handle.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and that's very disheartening, and
mhm,
what a great lesson learned for people.
mhm,
So I'm just to kind of recap for everybody, just to hear, I'm hearing a couple of wise lessons learned from Sandra that she has been able to share with us. One of these I really think is that the beginning of this whole thing, her parents embraced this, so there was a lot less guilt from the family side of things because her parents were the ones who initiated this whole selling of the home and moving into a long-term care, a continuing care retirement community with that foresight of thinking about the future. And I think that for those of us who are going through and thinking about, is this the next step for my loved one, or my loved one's in a long-term care community and they're not happy where they are, or they felt put there, which is a bad way to feel. Because then you'd feel like you're in jail because you had no choice or decision on that. To think about how those things, noodle those around in your head. If you're thinking about future placement, or if you're thinking about changes, involve that individual, involve the person, let them be part of that empowered being. Because when we start stripping people of that decisional capacity of where I'm going to live, it can be very dehumanizing for people. And
mhm,
it can be belittling. I mean, we do that with children. We tell them where they're going to be. And these are, these are adults that have lived long lives. So that's one clear messaging that I've heard from Sandra. Another one that you brought up, Sandra, was about that consistent caregiver and the struggle that you had in the community when your mother lived in the villa. And that was one of the downfalls that happened that made her feel unsafe and not knowing who was going to come in and not knowing the history of who she was even and or who she is and not being able to your mother not knowing who is this person that's coming in that's going to be helping me? Are they really going to show up? Are they a nice person? Are they not a nice, all of those things. And this is I'm welcoming them into my home. And they're going to be caring for me, and I don't know who they are. And so I feel that that's another messaging to hear for all of us is that when we have that consistent caregiver, because then you brought it into the long-term care community when you have your care meetings every quarter, and that staff changing, and that can not feel as comfortable either. So that continuity of staff is really important. And understanding their staff turnover. If you're a long-term care community, what are you doing to minimize staff from turning over? What are you doing to keep your staff? But also, are you rotating your staff? Do your staff work, 5 days down this hall and then 6 days down this hall? And are you
mhm.
rotating people around? That doesn't feel good for the people that are being cared for. And I also will tell you that doesn't feel good for staff either in the long run. When they know the people, they know routines, they know what they want, they know what they need, they know that they like coffee over tea or tea over coffee. They learn these things about people that they care for, and relationships grow. And so that consistent caregiver, having somebody that people know, can help bring comfort and safety for everybody. So I think that's another really great messaging that Sandra was able to share. And having a point person in the community, somebody that you can ask, and you can ask the stupid questions to, and you can ask the tough questions to, and you can ask the easy questions too. I think that that's something that I heard could be something that could free people up so that they can engage in life with their loved one while they're in that long-term care community, as opposed to having to be an appointment maker, a transportation organizer, and all those other things, particularly if you're doing this long distance. That can get really difficult. I'm wondering for you, Sandra, if it would have made a difference for you if you would have gotten like a listing of the staff and what their role was. And you could call them about these types of questions. This person, this is their role, and you could call them about these types of questions. Would that have been helpful for you?
Absolutely. In fact, that was one of my suggestions to anyone who embarks on this journey is to create that yourself. So I've done that myself, but it's ever changing and I don't know how accurate it is because new
Mhm.
concerns arise and then I have to figure out who is the person for that concern. If it was given to me, it would have been awesome. It could
And
be awesome.
And if they're giving it to you, like I know some communities do newsletters. It could be something that could be in the newsletter. And so
Mhm.
that way, then it could be updated if a role changes for somebody so that you then know who that new person would be, to be able to do that. So, again, that's some messaging that we might want to share with people. And I think that's helpful for not only the family, it's also helpful for the people that live in long term care because now I can feel more empowered and I can get stuff taken care of and not if I tell the nurse's aide that my food was cold, she doesn't work in the kitchen.
Right.
She can't do anything about that. But if you told me, well, if you talk to the dietary supervisor and this is her extension, oh, well, that would be helpful because otherwise I could say, I told somebody about it and they've never done anything about this. Well, it wasn't the CNA's role, the nurse's aide's role. And so she wasn't thinking of what was the importance to it and what could happen with that information. She was just thinking about the showers that she needed to give and the care issues that she needed to take care of. So that to me is another lesson learned here. Um,
And
and
if
the
they
last
don't provide it, Lee, if they don't provide it, I suppose we could request one in a care meeting.
Yep, I think that's a great idea. Why not make it, maybe you could do something for all, and other families can benefit from this too.
Mhm.
So they might be like, oh, that's a good idea.
Mhm.
So I think that's a great idea, Sandra. I want to see if you do that, and you need to let me know. And then the last message that I heard was really about having somebody else to talk to. You have your sister that you can talk about things, you could kind of bridge things through, kind of process out how that's going to look like. And not everybody has the sister or has the brother or has that other person that's involved in that care. So, I want to encourage you to find a person like that. I have been a member of a Facebook group for people, family members that have dementia. I don't have a family member that has dementia, but I will give feedback on that as a person who's worked in this path for a while. And that group is such an amazing support group for each other because they'll ask questions to each other for that support. And even sharing when their loved one is gone, they'll share that my mom passed away or my husband passed away, and people will be like, "Oh, so sorry to hear," and just that support as well. So I want to encourage you to find something like that for yourselves. We do have these meetings where we impart you with information. And during these meetings, if you want to even interconnect with people, if you're like, hey, I need a person like that, and somebody else raises their hand, let's go for it this year. This year is our year of really looking at the family piece to our resident and family support council meetings. So let's see what we can do to really help each other out so that we can help navigate this path a little bit more. And with that, Sandra, do you have any parting comment that you want to say to any of us?
No, I think you've done a great job. You've done a really good job. And
Oh,
those are really good takeaways. I think you've hit some really important topics.
good, good. And thank you for sharing that. Thank you really for sharing that with us. So I'm right now at this point, I am going to go ahead. Um, I'm gonna stop the recording because I know sometimes people have questions or comments that they want to make outside of the recording. So I'm gonna
Mhm.
go ahead. I'm gonna stop that right now. But thank you, Sandra. I just want to publicly thank you so much for being a part of this meeting.
Mhm.
Everything you shared was so valuable. So